My name's LaTisha, and I am a radical. And today I'm going to talk about being radical. But first, I want to tell you a story. Imagine you're walking down a river, going about your day, and all of a sudden you see a boy in the river, flailing his arms and crying for help. Like any good person, you dive into the river to save him. You drag him to shore, and then you stop. But then there's another person, a girl this time. You dive back in, you swim to her, and you drag her to shore. You think your work is finished, but then child after child, boy after girl comes streaming down the river. You immediately dive back in again. You even gather together your friends and community to pull as many children as you can out of the river. You create an elaborate system to save as efficiently as possible all of these children. You save some, but the reality is you cannot save them all. But you try. You work and you fight and you struggle. And then one day, you're going about this work and you see your friend Rachel walking upstream. You say, Rachel, why don't you come help me? Rachel says, I'm going upstream to find out where these children are coming from and to prevent their flow into the river. When I heard this story at the end of my freshman year, a light bulb went off in my head. I realized that I had been that swimmer. As a person who cared, I dove into the river and tried to save as many children as I could in my life. But I recognized at that moment that unless I added social justice to the social service work I was doing, I would not be able to save all of the children I wanted to. I realized at that moment that I had to be radical. I had to be radical in the way I thought about these facts. Of black boys born in 2001 in America, 1 of 3 are at risk of imprisonment over the course of their lifetime. 1 of 6 for Latino boys. I had to be radical in thinking about why the numbers of girls in the juvenile justice system were steadily increasing, and why children were being arrested and incarcerated at younger and younger ages. I had to be radical in thinking about why in the 2007-2008 cohort of which I was a part, only 47% of black men graduated from high school, 33% in my home state of Michigan, and 19% in the closest big city. I had to be radical in thinking about why, when the majority of 4th graders do not read at grade level, we spend 3 times as much per prisoner than we do per public school pupil. I had to be radical then in thinking about what many call the cradle-to-prison pipeline. It's a trajectory, a pathway of marginalization, criminalization, and disadvantage that leads towards imprisonment and early death rather than career and college. It's at the nexus of race, poverty, and place. And it puts in jeopardy all of the progress we've made over generations and generations of struggle. But a problem of this magnitude, a problem that put at stake and had implications for democracy and inequality, wouldn't be solved by service alone. I had to be radical, and I had to decide to face the odds. Because the reality is, in this country, we expose some children to odds that we would never be okay with for our own children. The reality is, we've become complicit in the disadvantage of other people's children. But there's hope. The odds that many children face can change. The current reality of many poor and disadvantaged communities does not always have to be that way. Disadvantaged communities can have advantages. Under-resourced communities can have resources. And underprivileged people and groups can have the privileges afforded by the American promise. So I've decided in my work over the time I've been at Yale, and for my life, I want to not just shift my perspective, but expand it in being radical. So to my service work, I added advocacy and activism. To volunteering, I added organizing and politics. And to my mentoring, I've decided to add research and policy. The reality is, radical, though I know it's a dirty word, just means to the root. So if we're gonna go to the root of the problems that we face in our society, we'll decide that we'll tell kids to beat the odds, we'll help them beat the odds, but we have to think about how we're gonna change those odds altogether. So today, I ask that you join me in proudly being a radical. You have one precious life. What are you gonna do with it? I challenge that you join me in looking around you and seeing in what ways you can be radical in thinking about and changing your community, our nation, and this world. Thank you.